Hello, this is Mike K0NGA, and in this video we are just going to go over programming DMR for amateur radio. That's it, a programming only video. So we will be using the Connect Systems CS750 CS800 software, the CPS 4.0, in order to make this video. But this video is going to apply to any radio that you're going to program for amateur radio. Now we're just going to be covering the DMR specific aspects of programming. We're not going to go into individual programming on individual radios. So nothing specific to Motorola or Connect Systems or to Titera or anything like that. This is just the DMR. Now before we get into the actual programming, I wanted to discuss a few things that are going to make this a little easier to understand. So to do that, let's talk about what DMR is. So firstly, DMR stands for Digital Mobile Radio, and it is an international commercial digital radio standard. Came into the United States out of Europe. Now sometimes people get that confused with turbo. What's the difference between turbo and DMR? So turbo is short for Moto Turbo, and Moto Turbo is Motorola's implementation of DMR. So they're not exactly interchangeable. So Moto Turbo is DMR, but not all DMR is Moto Turbo. Okay. So many amateur radio repeater networks use Moto Turbo equipment from Motorola, which is why it's sometimes confusing. We call it turbo networks. Yes, it's a turbo network because it uses Motorola Moto Turbo stuff. But at the end, everybody's using DMR. So you do not need a Motorola Moto Turbo radio to talk on DMR networks or on turbo networks, which is the cool thing. Now that leads us into the next concept, which is something I call Mike's DMR Doctrine. And that is simply, if something about using DMR for amateur radio doesn't make sense, remember that DMR was created for commercial use. It was never designed or intended for amateur radio use. Now we've kind of adopted it and we've kind of shoehorned it a little bit, but it was never really designed from the beginning for amateur radio. So companies even today are kind of reluctant to make features for the amateur radio enthusiast, because most of their money that they get from selling the radios comes from commercial users. So they will cater to the commercial operators and commercial buyer rather than the amateur radio enthusiast. And that's why sometimes it can get kind of confusing, and the radio manufacturers aren't somewhat responsive to the amateur radio community. So if something doesn't make sense, you're going, why is it this way? Why is it that way? Well, it was never an amateur radio standard to begin with. We are taking a commercial standard, using commercial programming software with commercial concepts, and using that in the radio. So keep that in mind as we're going forward. Now in relation to that, I want to go over something that can be a little bit confusing for the new enthusiast, and that is in relation to how a specific feature of the DMR radios and repeaters work. DMR repeaters use this concept of repeater slots, also called time slots. Now, it's not important to understand how the technology works, but what is important to understand is that there are two kind of like sub-channels, you can almost think of it like, inside a DMR repeater that use the same frequency. Okay? So a DMR repeater will have a transmit and receive frequency just like an analog amateur radio repeater, but you can have two conversations going on at the same time on the same frequency pair. So the repeater does this in its digital magic and keeps track of which slot the conversations are going on. But when you go to program a channel, one of the things that you have to specify in a DMR channel is which repeater slot you want to use. DMR repeaters will also use this concept of a talk group, which we'll discuss later. And a talk group will be assigned to a repeater slot. So if, let's say I want to talk on talk group 1. Okay, so when you go to program the repeater, here's your frequency pair, here's a talk group, you have to know which repeater slot that talk group is on. And if you program it wrong, no one's going to hear you, no one's going to be able to respond to you. So for this video, this is what we're going to be looking at as far as our repeaters that we're going to program into the software. This is actually two repeaters. So you'll notice on the first repeater, which is our Squall Mountain repeater here at RM Ham, there is one talk group, the Colorado talk group, on slot 1, and there's one talk group, the Denver talk group, on slot 2. Whereas the other repeater, our Lee Hill DMR Mark repeater, has 3 talk groups on slot 1 and 2 talk groups on slot 2. And that's not impossible. It is possible to do. What that means, though, is that on, for example, the DMR Mark repeater, if someone is talking on the DMR Mark Worldwide talk group, no one is going to be able to talk on the DMR Mark North America talk group on the same repeater at the same time. So you have 2 independent time slots that you can do conversations on, but you can only have 1 conversation per talk group. So that being said, that's all the slides we're going to have for this video. Let's get into the software. So as I said before in the video, we're going to be using the Connect Systems CPS 4.0 software, which is the programming software for the 750 and the 7800 with the new firmware. But these concepts are going to apply to any radio. So you can take these concepts and look for the same areas in your programming software for different radios and be able to program the same things. So we're going to start with a brand new fresh file. And the first thing we're going to do is go into the general settings and set the radio ID. Oops. I can't type today. So there we go. Radio ID is in. Never forget that. Very important. Okay, so we're going to start out with the contact list. And the reason why we're going to start out with the contact list is that you have to specify a talk group to transmit on, and you specify a talk group to receive on by using receive groups. We'll go over that when we get there, but it's great to have those things done ahead of time so you don't have to go back and forth. So we have a contact already up there, a blank one essentially. So for the RM ham channels, we have 2 talk groups, for example, repeater. So that is the Colorado talk group and the Denver talk group. So we'll put in the Colorado. It is a group call. The call ID is 700 for that group, and we'll go ahead and set a receive tone. And then for the Denver talk group, again a group call. This one is 720, and we'll set a receive tone. Okay. So there's our talk groups for the RM ham repeaters. Now, for the DMR Mark repeaters, there are 5, and you can go ahead and add all 5 ahead of time, so you can, kind of keep track. So the first DMR Mark channel we're going to put in is the worldwide, and we do it like this. Oops. Now we don't use dashes because in this new version of the software, in order to get to 2,000 channels into 65,000 contacts, they had to remove certain characters that you can put into the contact list name. So your software may support the dashes, so feel free to put them in however you want. As it turns out, worldwide is actually talk group 1, so we can just leave it like that. And local is talk group 2, although I did check with the list today, and it looks like they changed local to 9, but our repeaters are still on 2, so this is the way we're going to program it. Again, check with your repeater owners to determine your talk groups and what they should be set to. 3 is North America. And then this repeater has 2 additional talk groups. We have the Worldwide English talk group, which is talk group 13. And then we have our regional talk group, which is the Mountain talk group, which is 3177. Okay, so now we have all of our talk groups in our list. Now, if you want to add in contacts for individuals so that then when their call comes through, you see their information instead of their radio ID, here's how you do that. We're going to do this as me, and this is how we do this around here. We put in call sign and first name, like that. So when I make a call now to this radio, now it'll show up as Conga Mike instead of my radio ID. This is a private call, and you put in the person's radio ID like that. And that's all there is to it. Now, for these group calls, that does us what we need to do for the transmit side. For the receive side, it gets a little trickier. We go into our receive group list, and we're going to have to create one of these receive group lists essentially for each channel, which is kind of a pain in the butt, but you do what you have to do. Now, there's several ways you can do this, unfortunately. So I'm gonna talk about the our way and then the DMR Mark way. So for our way, we're just gonna set one group for each talk group. So this receive group is going to be called Colorado, and as you can see, they already have Colorado up here in members because they have to have at least one when they create a new one. So that one's just a gimme. Now, to create a new talk group, you click this little plus button down here, or you can go up here to receive group list and go add. Either way works. So here's our new receive group list. Oh, this one's blank. They tricked me. Haha. So this one's going to be called Denver, and we're just going to put the Denver group in. That means that these particular, when you assign these to a channel, that channel is just going to listen for the talk groups that are in the list, that are members of the list. Just these over here. Now, DMR Mark is a little bit different, and this is the way I do this in order to try to keep my sanity. So let's start with DMR Mark Worldwide. Now, normally you would just do this. Okay? Now, when you have a worldwide, when that comes in, it's great. It's all well and good. It's very easy to understand. What DMR Mark wants you to do is this, and that is because all three of these channels share the same talk group. The reason why they want you to do this is because if you are tuned to worldwide and a transmission comes in on North America, it'll open the speaker and you'll realize, oh, hey, someone is talking on the time slot but on a different channel. That's why I won't be able to transmit. So that's the logic, and it makes perfect sense. However, if you're like me, I do a lot of scanning. And when you're scanning, the way we like to set it up is that we can transmit back on the channel that is last heard. But what happens is that I could be on worldwide and North America could come in as a channel, but if it comes in and opens up on the worldwide channel, when I respond, it'll be on the worldwide channel, not North America. So if you do a lot of scanning, it's better, in my opinion, to go one for one. That way, that whatever opens your speaker will be the channel that you're actually wanting to transmit on. So it's a little confusing. Just trust me on that. But the way that DMR Mark wants it done is like this. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if this makes any difference, but again, I do it this way because it makes it easier to edit later. I do one per, and I put whatever's the name of the receive group on there first, and then local and mountain are in the same one. And we're going to add, I'm just going to keep going down the list. North America is worldwide and worldwide English. Oop, wrong. There we go. Worldwide English, North America, worldwide, and finally our mountain. Mountain goes in with North America. So there are our receive group lists. That's on the receive side of a channel. Pretty straightforward, I hope. So now that we have this done, we have all this prep work done, we can actually go and create a channel. And this will be a digital channel. So here's a digital channel. We're going to call this Squaw Colo. Now we call it Colo because some radios can't go all the way to Colorado and it cuts off, so this is kind of our thing. And in our parlance, our names of our channels match the location of the repeater and the talk group that it's going to talk on. So this is Squaw Mountain Repeater, Colorado Talk Group. And looking at my list, the Colorado talk group is on slot 1. So slot 1 is here. Now this color code is another thing that's unique to DMR. It works kind of like a tone in analog, but it's done digitally. Okay. So again, this is another piece of information you'll need from your repeater owner. What's the color code of the repeater? In our case, the color code is 7. So we set color code 7. It's like an access point. It's there so that two repeaters can be in close frequency range, but that the radios won't crosstalk on each other. It allows that first step of access to specify between the two repeaters. All right, so we haven't talked about scan yet. We'll come back to that. Okay, so our receive frequency for this repeater, 446.9375. Now, you can go over here and type this in manually, or you can go to this megahertz offset. This one has a -5 offset, hit apply, and bam, it does it for you. How easy is that? Very, very cool. Okay, we'll scroll down here. Now, here is our receive group list. This is what we're going to receive on. And again, these are lists. So here's our Colorado list. We know because we just programmed it that the only talk group in the Colorado receive group list is the Colorado talk group. Again, very confusing, kind of freaky. This is because it's a commercial radio, and commercial radios need to be able to receive on multiple talk groups but transmit on one. Again, remember the DMR doctrine. This is a commercial radio that we're shoehorning into amateur radio use. Accept it. This is the way it's programmed. Okay. And over here, we set our contact that we're going to transmit to. These are talk groups. And again, it's already set to Colorado because it's the first in the list. So this will transmit out on the Colorado talk group. That's basically all you have to do on the channel. Okay, there's some other things you can set. Power level. We recommend setting the transmit to color code free. That way it prevents you from talking over somebody. It's a very, very cool feature to have. And if you guys in your area have a timeout timer that's set for the repeater, you can set your radio to that as well, so the radio will automatically beep off and stop transmitting when you hit that, so they don't sit there and talk for 5 minutes not realizing that you're not hitting the repeater. And that is it. You may want to go ahead and set the talk around to where you can do talk around between two people. That's all. You can also set that. But again, that's the basics. So now let's set our next channel. Again, we can go to digital channel and click add, or you can just click the little button down here, the little blue button. Here's our next channel. So here we go with SQA repeater, Denver talk group. Now this talk group, again, the color code, same repeater, same color code, but this talk group is on slot 2. So we have to set slot 2. Now notice we can't hit talk around yet because our transmit and receive frequencies are the same. Okay, so we have to set those different to be different. Otherwise, there's no point in talk around. It's just a simplex channel, and talk around or talk around and simplex channels. The concepts don't apply. They're mutually exclusive. So again, same frequency, 446.9375. It carried over the -5 offset setting from our previous previous channel, so we can only pop that. Now that they're different, we can hit talk around. Fantastic. We do then the Denver receive group and the Denver talk group. There we go. And we can go ahead and set our timeout to 102, set our transmit to color code free, and there we go. Pretty simple stuff. Now let's go into our DMR mark repeaters. So let's start with, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to add all 5 because I want to show you another neat trick. So we'll start with 1. Double click here and make sure we're on 1. We're going to do DMR. No, this is not DMR. So this is Lee Hill. So again, Lee Hill is the location, and worldwide is the talk group. So our first 3 are going to be on talk group 1. The color code for these repeaters is 1. So color code 1, time slot 1. And the frequency for this repeater, 445.05. And it also has a negative offset. There we go. And then our receive group list for this one is going to be worldwide, because we're doing worldwide. Worldwide there. A lot of that, naming those channels in the pre-work is very, very cool. Makes this a lot easier. to our color code free and our 120. Now you notice that I'm typing all this stuff out manually all the way through here. That can get kind of bothersome. So what you can do is click here, right click and hit copy, and you can paste into the other channels. Now it doesn't look like we're doing much here, but wait for it. Let's double click on channel 2, and you'll notice that all of this down here is set. It doesn't copy the channel alias, but it copies everything else. So that's a lot of manual entry that you don't have to go through, because again, all 5 of these channels, same repeater, same frequency pair, same color code. This also sets color code free and the timeout timer the same on all the channels, which is very cool. Now let's change the name of the channel. DMR Lee Hill. I get that, and that's the names. I get those confused sometimes. Lee Hill Worldwide English. Worldwide English is also on time slot 1. That makes it easy. So all we have to do here is go and change these two, and that's all we need to do. Let's go and do North America. Lee Hill North America. It's on the same time slot, same frequency pair. North America. North America. Very simple. Now we start getting just a tad bit. We have to change one thing here that we didn't have to do before. This is local. Now local is on time slot 2. So we change time slot to 2. North America. North America. No, local. Sorry, this is local. I just typed it and forgot. Local. There we go. And finally, Lee Hill North America. And I just realized, let me go back to this channel. This is supposed to be Lee Hill. Haha. Many mistakes in this video, but that's okay. I am human and not a robot. Lee Hill Mountain. This is also on time slot 2. Mountain and mountain. There we go. So there's all, and you can flip through them like this and see that all the frequencies are the same. The only thing that's changing is maybe the time slot, like that. But the channels are essentially the same. You can also use it to double check and make sure these look fairly similar. So there are our channels. Our channels are set to go. Now, in order to use a channel on these radios, you have to assign them to a zone. So the zone is basically just a collection of channels. That's all it is. And then you select the channels, and then your channel selector knob on the radio will switch between the channels. So we have our default zone 1 here. So we're just going to call this, we'll call this RM ham, just for giggles. And we just want the RM ham channels on here. So again, by default, our first 2 analog and digital channels were in here. The analog channels are blank. Don't worry about it. It's in there by default. We're going to click on our channel here and hit add. So now we have our RM ham channels in our RM ham zone. Now we can add all the channels in here we want, up to 16 channels. It doesn't matter what type of channels or what they are. It's just whatever you want. So let's do another zone. We'll call this DMR Mark, like that. And then we'll put all of our DMR Mark channels in here. So we're going to get rid of, we can't get rid of that until we add one, which is annoying. There we go. So we're going to add all of our DMR Mark repeaters in here. Great. Now we can add another one. We'll just call this all channels. Now, obviously, if you have more than 16 channels, you're not going to be able to put all channels into all channels, but here we go. Like that. We'll get rid of the digital. We'll say all digital channels. Let's clarify that. Oops, too many letters. Okay. Now let's say, oh no, I want my RM ham repeaters first. You don't have to add them, take them out and re-add them. You can use the move up button like that. And our dimmer, let's move it up. Oh, put the dimmer too high. Put it back down. Cool. I'm happy with that layout. Now we have 3 zones, and depending on your radio, there's different ways in the menus or whatnot to change zones. You may even have the zone change programmed as buttons, whatever they are. You switch between the zones, and then your little radio dial then will change between channel 1 and channel 2 here. You know, channel 1 through channel 5 on our DMR Mark, and channels 1 through 7 on here. There may be some empty spaces, and your radio may beep and say, hey, you don't have anything programmed here. Just turn it back to the other radios. That's fine. So now we can actually use the channels with the radio. And that's really the basics. That's all you need to get on the air. It's just these things. Plug in your cable, push up this code plug, and off you go. One final thing I want to go over is scan, because scan can get a little confusing. I'm going to do a scan list similar to our channel. So I'll do an RM ham scan, and I'm not going to go over the details down here. That's beyond the scope of this particular video. So I've got those two channels here, and then I'm going to add one and do DMR mark, because I want to illustrate something that can get a little confusing. And then I'm going to do another one called all dig channels, and I'll do them all in here. I'm just going to go doop 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 doop. Okay, so now I have the scan list. Now, in order to use a scan list, you have to assign a scan list to a channel. You select that channel, you hit the scan button, the radio will scan the scan list that's associated with the channel. Now, the most logical way to do this on the surface is to assign the RM ham scan lists to the RM ham channels, and the DMR scan lists to the DMR channels, like that. Makes perfect sense, very logical, all good. But what about our all zone? Okay. What happens with the all zone? What if I want to do the all scan in the all zone? Well, if we go to our all zone and look back at our channels, we've already assigned scan lists to each one of these channels. What do? It can get a little bit confusing. So what I would do is choose a channel on here that isn't popularly selected by you, the one that is used least often, and assign the all to that one, so that you whatever you choose in the list will be great, except for that one channel that you remember, and you have to remember this, that'll scan all the channels. Again, that's just my suggestion. So the one I'm on least is worldwide, so we'll go to worldwide, and I can choose all digital channels like that. Now, this does not prevent me from setting this to RM ham. I can do that. I don't know why you would want to do that, but technically you can do it. So I go to that channel, hit it, it's going to scan the RM channels and nothing else. Not the two concepts don't apply. Zones and scan lists are completely independent. So you can scan channels that aren't in the zone. It's perfectly allowable. So this gives a great amount of flexibility, and with it, a certain level of confusion with setting up your scan list. That's why we recommend sticking with something that that's a little simpler to understand for you. There's no right or wrong way to do it. There's some confusing ways to do it, but there's really not a right or wrong way to do it. Do what seems best for you, what makes sense for you. So that is it. So what we did today, we added our contact list entries for our talk groups. We assigned our talk groups to receive groups and discussed why DMR Mark wants multiple talk groups in a receive group. We then created our channels with all the settings that we need, including our receive group and our talk group, and various ways to do that. We assigned our channels to zones for both of our repeaters, and then we assigned them a scan list, which we created similarly to our, where's our scan list again? There they are. We created our scan list similar to our zones and assign those scan lists to our channels. So that's the basics, just the DMR basics. If you have questions about this video, leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you want to see more. We still have the contact list and channels list export video to be done, export and import. And so if you want to see that, get notified when that gets out, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button to make sure you get notified of new videos that come out, and we'll see you then. So thank you for watching the video, and I hope to hear you on the air.